Asking why is hard to do, but it often brings us closer. This is the After 10 p.m. podcast. Welcome to episode 3. I want to get on here and I want to talk about perspective. Different perspectives usually push us apart. Understanding why can bring us together. And that's something we teach at Telehope. Our different perspectives shouldn't push us apart. They should bring us together. If we can understand why, then I think we'll be a whole lot closer. And I think we'll be able to make these communities around us that we want to have. Disagreements usually stop at what somebody believes in, not necessarily why they believe what they believe. And we've all been a part of these arguments, whether it's politics, religion, sports, ideas, relationships, family relationships, whatever it might be. These arguments happen because of the what, and it's never because of the why. And it's hard to ask these things, and we'll talk about that later, about why it is so hard to ask why. But this is where connection happens, if we can ask the why. We've all been in an argument where we feel completely misunderstood, and why can't they understand what I'm talking about? Sometimes I'm explaining why, but the problem is they're not curious about it. And so we do that all the time. We get in these arguments, and we're not curious about somebody else's why. For example, now I wrote this down so I wouldn't butcher this. Think about something small like strawberry shortcake. One person loves it, one person hates it. It sounds stupid, but that's usually how disagreements start, over little things. Preferences, opinions, tastes, it turns into judgment, or at least a quiet disagreement. You don't get why anyone would like strawberry shortcake, and they don't get why you don't. At that point, it's easy to label somebody. They're weird, they're wrong, they have bad taste, and we move on thinking we understand the situation when we really don't understand anything at all. We come to our own judgments. But then you learn the reason they love strawberry shortcake is because their grandma, who passed away, used to make it for them. It was something she made every birthday or every holiday, or just when they needed comfort. And suddenly everything shifts. We realize our judgment was wrong. You don't suddenly love strawberry shortcake. Your opinion doesn't change. But the argument feels different. The judgment feels heavier. The person feels more human. What used to be a dumb preference now carries meaning, memory, and loss. Nothing about dessert changed. What changed was the why. And once you understand the why, it becomes a lot harder to dismiss somebody, mock them, or reduce them to an opinion. That's what perspective does. It doesn't force agreement, but it creates connection. And we've all been in a similar situation of this silly analogies that I had written down. We've all been there. We feel misunderstood because somebody can't understand our why. Understanding somebody's why isn't to agree with somebody. It's to understand them. It's to be there for somebody. And being there and understanding somebody's why might just create a friend. You might bond over something that might have been traumatic, and in this example, might be your grandma passing. And I think we get something wrong with perspective, because perspective doesn't mean to blindly agree. Perspective means to see somebody where they're at. Perspective is to take 2 steps back from your own judgments and your own thoughts and have this wide view of what the situation could be. And sometimes it's really hard to do that. What I think the problem is apathy. There's a movie that I love that most of my friends make fun of me for liking. It's called Patch Adams. It's a Robin Williams movie. And he has a quote in there, and he's this doctor. He's fighting all these different diseases. And he says, let's fight one of the most terrible diseases, the disease of indifference. And this is apathy. We get in these arguments, we get in these fights, we get in these disagreements, whatever it might be. And we feel resentful towards somebody. Honestly, feeling resentful towards something or somebody is probably a lot better than feeling indifferent towards it. Because we've all been in that spot where we feel indifferent. I don't really care what ends up happening. And true apathy, it's hard to get rid of. It's hard to change. It's hard to talk to somebody who really doesn't care about you. That relationship gets tarnished, and we've all been in this place of I couldn't care any less about what you do. Sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes it helps us get over people. Sometimes it helps us get over fights and different ideas and disagreements. But at the end of the day, we're all people. And is that really worth it? An argument about politics or religion really worth hurting another person because of this lack of perspective, the lack of understanding, the lack to want to know what they're thinking about? Is that really worth it? I don't think so. And once you understand somebody's why, it's pretty hard to be indifferent. It's It's pretty difficult. If somebody doesn't like strawberry shortcake, but you understand their why of why they do like strawberry shortcake, well, you might have a bite of strawberry shortcake now because you understand their why. It might make you more open to try something new. Religion, politics, the worst topics to argue about. If you understand somebody's why, maybe you might be more open to looking into it. So why don't we ask why? Why is it so hard to ask why or to see somebody's perspective? 3 things. It takes effort. You have to be curious. And the biggest one is we might be wrong, and that's hard to admit. It's hard to admit that you don't like somebody because they do this, this, and this because of this way. And you might be wrong about that. That person might actually be one of your close friends. You guys might have the same why of why you do things. It just looks a little bit differently. And I think that's the hardest one, why people don't want to understand somebody else's why, is because they might be wrong about that person. We all come to our own assumptions and conclusions about people. We decide this guy's going to be my friend, she's going to be my friend, this is perfect here because of this, this, and this. And what we forget is we might be wrong. And so asking why proposes that problem of I might have misread this person. This person might actually be a great person, but we don't care to ask why. This is what this podcast is about. Can we do these hard things in times when we might not want to? Thanks for listening, guys.